Well, hello, people. It's been a while, and today we are here after a little snow in the Chicago area, ready to go here. Get back into it again. Giallo. Giallo is what we're talking about tonight. And with us tonight, we have speculative and weird and strange author, right? M. Stern. Say hey there.
That's me. Hey.
All
hey,
right.
everyone.
Did I introduce you correctly?
Yes, M with a capital M.
Capital
That's
M.
me. Time to get speculative and weird.
Is the dot capital dot?
It depends on the font.
Dot.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So on the way over here, I picked up M. Can I refer to you as M?
M is it works.
Okay, M.
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about just the origins of Giallo, which is yellow in Italian, refers to the color of the pulp fiction mags, kind of like a detective, right?
Yeah.
Detective.
The detective thriller novel. I think some of them were originally Italian. Some were things translated into Italian, other from other languages and so on. But yeah, it was just the same way that the German krimi was.
Yes, the krimi, right?
Sort of, I guess, krimi films have if they weren't at the time, have started to be seen as the sort of progenitor of the Giallo, which set the stage for its, I guess, the popularity of the films. But yeah, a krimi in German is just a crime thriller, and
right.
So I think the Giallo is the crime thriller in Italy. So
yeah, which kind of, well, we'll talk about this more as we get into it, but just the whole Italian regurgitation of Western themes and genres and styles. Of course, there's spaghetti westerns, which, in my opinion, some of them are better than the American counterparts. In the Giallo, it's basically noir, but in color. Of course, the American film noir films, mostly in the 40s and 50s, were known for their black and white chiaroscuro, the detectives, the gumshoe detectives, the hot girl, and the crime. So taking that into 60s and 70s, we get, and then putting it through the Italian filter, post-fascist Italy, post-war Italy. What do we get? What do we get? We've got some of the originators, right? The early Giallo film directors, Mario Bava, Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci.
Sergio Martino is another.
Sergio Martino, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me you were talking about the sort of immediate, post-war, the first sort of post-war cinematic movement in Italy was neorealism, which was sort of itself a flip on what had grown popular under the Mussolini's autocracy, which was sort of everything was real big and I guess there were these. I haven't seen any of the movies from that period, from the fascist period, but I guess there were obviously aggrandized the state and,
yes.
and everything was super epic, and then
just like the Russian and the Riefenstahl films
exactly.
of Germany and Nazi Germany,
and then so the shift was then to the using non-professional actors and small sort of personal stories, and then so
French Nouvelle Vague scene,
Yep.
Truffaut and so forth, kind of using non-actors and
Yeah, same
handheld
sort
cameras.
of.
A little different than that, but more.
Yeah, next, I guess maybe Next Generation or
I mean, it's close to the same
close.
generation, but
Yeah.
let's just take 400 Blows versus the Blood and Black Lace. Those were pretty close in as far as the time frame considered, but I would consider them very different stylistically.
Right, certainly. Like,
right?
I mean, Bava, that's an interesting phenomenon to me. The extent to which the genre cinema, I guess, I guess it seems like Italy had two giant, famous film industries that sort of, I don't know if they operated independently. I mean, they didn't operate independently because as you look into it, as you look at the filmographies, you find that there are these connections between the Fellini sort of of course Pasolini, these sorts of things, this side of things, and then the Bava Fulci. Just have to dig a little below the surface. Like there was a horror anthology called Spirits of the Dead.
Okay.
And it had it was horror, but it was done by three art house directors. It was there was one from Louis Malle. There's one from Fellini, which had Terrence Stamp in it.
Oh, cool.
And there was
Love Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. And there was one. Was there a? It escapes me now who the third director was. But at any rate, the one who the screenwriter, I just found this out the other day. The screenwriter for the Fellini one, if I'm remembering correctly, was the guy who wrote Satyricon, I think. He collaborated with him a bunch. So so yeah, there are all sorts of weird. Roger Vadim was the third one, and it has Jane Fonda, was in it. Yeah, it was peak Jane Fonda. Barbarella era Jane Fonda.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so
yeah, so the difference between you're talking about the okay, so if we can draw some kind of parallel lines with that in the American film industry, you have the film noir, and most of those were really, I mean, today a lot of them are considered classic films, but a lot of those were more like the magazines they were taken from were pulp movies, the B movies, which doesn't mean they were B for bad or B for they're just lower budget instead of the tentpole pictures.
Sure. I guess James M. Cain novels were the inspiration for a lot of those. Postman always thinks twice. Is that it?
Oh yeah, right. So and then Sam Spade and the detective guy.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while you get a Casablanca and things like that. Just the real biggies. But when we get back to the Italian Giallo, the origins of it, you just watched Blood and Black Lace. Mm-hmm. That was
rewatched. Yeah, there's
Bava.
Yeah,
and that was what
64.
64.
Yeah,
wow,
that's
early.
Really early.
Yeah.
Had Cameron Mitchell, who interesting sort of figure. I guess he had I think some sort of mainstream U.S. TV career.
Yeah.
And then moved into doing a bunch of Italian horror stuff, and then one of the most more recent things. He passed away many years ago, but the more recent things that I watched more recently, that was also more recent for him, was a movie called Trapped Alive, which was a Windsor Lake studio picture.
Okay,
it's sort of that's an interesting phenomenon in itself. It's I think the producer. If we can take a step. Windsor Lake Studio was set up in Milwaukee, somewhere in Wisconsin.
Wow.
I don't know anything about Wisconsin, so maybe it was nowhere near Milwaukee, but it was in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So wherever that is, and I think it was the producer of Hellraiser.
Oh.
A guy named Chris Weber or Chris Webster, I want to say.
Yeah.
Showed up with this dude, Leszek Brzezinski, and they just started making horror movies. I guess because it was cheaper than shooting them in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I guess for some aesthetic purpose as well, in the sense that you could have, how many horror movies of that era do you see with snow, right?
Right.
That seemed to be their
Right. There's a lot of forest and a lot of snow and
so
cabins in the woods.
Yeah. So Cameron Mitchell, so Cameron Mitchell was in, I think the first one of those films was Trapped.
And I suppose a few that happened to a few American actors. They probably, as they weren't going to be as big in Hollywood, they figured the European market they could probably do better in.
Yeah.
Now John Saxon was also in a few Giallo movies, Argento films, Tenebrae.
Tenebrae, yeah.
Yeah. And a couple others as well. And then, of course, Tisa Farrow was in a couple also. Was the less talented of the Farrow sisters. But a good, whatever, close enough.
Yeah.
She looks like her sister. And so I think that's what...
Well, I want to say Joseph Cotton was in a Bava movie or two.
Oh, interesting.
He was
I
in Baron
just saw
Blood.
him in Dr. Fives.
Yeah, right.
Cotton was in Fives, too, which was a British film.
Where he has that's sort of that last scene where, what is at one point someone gets a mask
Dr. Fives,
locked onto his face, like a frog mask.
That's
but then
right.
there's the surgery scene. Like somebody has to get a key before.
That's right. Cotton's son.
Right.
The acid is going to drop onto his son's face.
That's it. It's not surgery. It's that setup.
The acid. Yeah.
That struck me as being very much an early sort of take on Saw, right? I mean, the idea that
for sure. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably got it from there. Yeah. No, that was wild. The ultimate. The guy is so vengeful. And of course, it was just they couldn't save his wife, and it was like, sorry, man, she was going to die. That's the best surgeon. Yeah. And he just has to kill everyone involved. It's like, dude, it's not going to bring your wife back.
Had Vincent Price in there as well, right?
Vincent Price was Fives.
Yeah.
Caroline Munro was the dead wife.
Yeah.
So too bad we didn't see her move around a little, but
yeah. It's been a while since.
That's all right. She's pretty good looking, dead even.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen that one. So But I know.
But that
I remember Vincent Price struggling to maintain a straight face during one of the scenes. Like it's
interesting.
It's very
well. He's got a mask on for most of it, or just kind of masky type of things on, and he never opens his mouth, so he kind of moves his neck muscles, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the, that's definitely in that era. But when the
back to Italy, I feel
back
like
to Italy. I was just
we...
thinking of the concept of what Giallo started off out and where it ended up. It seems like Bava certainly was a cinematographer, and so was Argento. So they came from a visual style. They came from lighting and color, and so in Blood and Black Lace, it's all a fashion. The whole premise is around fashion. So we have the colors of the bright colors of the 60s style garments. There's a lot of that. And so and then always the killings are very stylistic. They kind of started off kind of slow, not a big body count in these things. Typically there would be just maybe one,
Yeah, there's a couple. Though it's surprisingly
there's a couple in that,
gnarly in Blood and Black Lace. Rewatching it, I was struck by the force with which people were struck with objects such as that claw thing, like and just like the first appearance of the black gloved killer, like he dives at someone, and it's like he's really like, you know, laying into the person he's attacking, and it's
well, that's the difference I think we would see from an American film and then the Italian, which I always loved, because I just love to see a foreign film and what they can get away with more.
Yeah.
You know, eating a baby and whatever.
Yes, we can jump to Anthropophagus.
And that was what, 1980 or something?
81, I think.
Yeah. And that is... That's D'Amato?
Joe D'Amato.
That was D'Amato, yeah.
Aristide Massachese, a.k.a. Joe D'Amato.
Yeah.
I will fail to correctly pronounce any Italian name, I promise, but I'll give it a shot. We can call him Joe D'Amato for... But
yeah, it's purposes. Just the... Yeah, right. So even from the onset here, an American movie, you know, a lot of gunshots would just have no blood, you know, because we're coming out of the censorship era, you know, post-code.
Hays Code was...
right. So, and then, of course, we had the 70s films, the Easy Rider, the Carol, Ted, Bob, Alice, these films that, you know, came out of that sexual awakening from the United States, and that kind of freed it.
The opening up of that. Up. But, by the same time, I mean, what was... Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice is what, 74? Was that earlier? I can't
that was probably in that era. I'm just trying to think of the early ones that kind of, you know, like Easy Rider was kind of brutal, you know, the shotgun blasting and stuff like that. So, and of course drugs, which wouldn't have gotten across, like the Hays Code was like the bad guy can't get away with it and all this stuff.
You've seen, you know, I mean, you can pick out almost some of the Hays Code endings that get tacked on. Like, I think the Bad Seed is one of those where the movie is essentially over, and then it's like...
They bring him back on. Hi, we're just kidding. She's really not an evil.
Even before that, though, I think there's a... I mean, but that was the... Yeah, they smoothed it over with that. But I think even before that, like, she... Wasn't the... Like, it end up someone gets hit by lightning or something. I remember there being like a The kid gets hit by lightning
in the back. Yeah. That's true. True.
But I think.
Yeah, I mean, she burns that janitor alive in the basement. It was like, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But you didn't see too much of that. Well, it was a very stagey, you know, adaptation too. But like you were saying, just the intensity.
Yeah.
And it would not just be one stab or one hit. Yeah. It would be several, like, and it would just be like they draw that scene out a lot.
Yeah.
And what we'll be talking about in a future episode is about the different kinds of blood. You know, Technicolor blood, Hammer blood, Savini blood, and then the Giallo blood, which I guess a lot of it was based on a nail polish base. Very shiny and very red, you know, to work with that film stock too. It was just so red, and a profondo rosso.
It was deep red, deeply red.
That's right.
Deeply and profoundly red.
Profoundly red. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So it's style. It's about the style. The killings are stylistic.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the big thing with, you know, Argento is that it takes on almost a surreal kind of expressionistic, you know, how stylized can you make the killing? How, you know, I mean, I think it's been years since I've seen Suspiria, but I believe there's a part, don't you see someone's heart just like at one point, and then the knife goes into it, and then I think there's that face pressed against the window.
So great.
That's and then
and just pushed through the window.
Yeah, pushed through the window.
And then hangs from the cable, and then falls, and then the glass comes down. I mean, it's just one thing after another.
Rube Goldberg machine.
Right. Which is kind of the Final Destination.
Yeah, right.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of the stylization of the death is very important.
Yeah.
in most Giallo, and it's just the extended, like for instance, in a zombie Fulci movie, he likes eyes for some reason. I mean, it's whenever you see a sharp, pointy stick coming at an eye, you're like, ah!
Yeah.
And he likes to go there and
Yeah, it's pretty
pierce the
visceral.
eye, yeah,
His,
and like take a long time to pull the eye towards the pointy stick, and then actually puncture it.
Yep. Yeah. Those.
It's usually a woman too.
Fulci's. Yeah, there's plenty of that. He's is definitely. Fulci's an interesting guy. He was. From what I understand, somewhat misanthropic, especially after a certain point. He didn't lead a charmed life. It doesn't sound like he had a lot of tragedies that sort of befell him, and but then, as with so many misanthropes, plenty of people say that he was perfectly lovely to be on the. There's stories about him being very kind on the set, and then there's stories about him being somewhat of a tyrant. Depending on I guess what was going on. Like he directed Zombie 3 with his his liver was failing, and he was like had some sort of like machine that he was hooked up to. That was so it's
dedicated to his craft.
Yeah, very very much. It's interesting. He had been, I guess, some stripe of a mainstream filmmaker. He made a bunch of comedies. And,
right.
Yeah, I don't think
that is interesting.
Yeah, I don't think they've been released in English. I don't think there's English, subtitled or dubbed versions of them.
Comedies.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, just given the interest in his work over the last 10 years. It's sort of been a reevaluation of that too. But at any rate, I watched a 4-hour documentary about Lucio Fulci. It's called Pora or something. It was sort of strangely put together. It was all like it's just interview footage. And some of those interviews you see on other discs, on other DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. For some reason, they just put out all these interviews, and it was asking essentially everyone in the Italian genre film industry, what did you, what was your take on Lucio Fulci?
Yeah.
And got a little difficult to watch, because watching someone ask the same question over and over for 4 hours, I was a little hungover when I watched it, and it started to feel sort of surreal, because there was the same loader music in between each scene, but I can't remember where I was going with that.
But Fulci was like the authors that created the Pulp Fiction. He cranked out a lot of films. A lot of misses, some hits, some misses.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I wanted to mention was that I believe somewhere in that documentary it mentioned him actually having worked in some capacity with Federico Fellini.
Okay.
I think he, and certainly as critics have come to appreciate more recently, I mean, there is a level of, stylization in some of those movies and homage to classic, art house stuff. Like we were going to talk about Don't Torture a Duckling.
Yes.
As I was saying earlier,
that's Bava, right?
Don't Torture a Duckling is Fulci.
Well, that is Fulci. Yeah, it's Fulci. That's right. That's Fulci. Yeah.
No, the opening scenes of of that movie struck me as, it could have been it felt like a Fellini film, in the sense that it's all the little kids running around, sort of just rural life and these, that big panoramic shot of that bridge.
But it's the bridge. It's the juxtaposition of that real modern bridge running through this verdant valley.
Yeah.
Which holds the grave of the child. Yeah. Right. So the witch.
Yeah, and then I think it's got the close up on the hands digging into the dirt, which is a very Fulci sort of thing, and and then we move from
Yeah, and just in all the Giallo, just something to do with the texture of skin
Yeah.
and the way that rotting and is just in all the zombie, just like the texture on the hands. You notice that they're just caked with mud, and it just has a lot of texture to it, like they're very surreal.
Yeah.
It's like they're not just natural mud on them. It's just like it's caked on, and they're almost, I don't know.
Yeah, Fulci was really good with decay, Yeah. Just the sort of, there's something visceral and revolting about a lot of, especially as you get into the, the more horror,
like zombie or something like that.
The Beyond, with the goo leaking out of eye sockets.
Right,
and,
right. But in the Duckling, I mean, just the attack scene in the cemetery of the witch, voodoo, is just brutal, brutal. Chains
and
each, he spends time on each, it was something like 4 fathers or something like that. Took their time, whipping this woman with, and they were strategic, okay, one in the right across the face, and then just a real ripping of the flesh.
It was
the
very
legs, the right leg, and then the left leg, so she couldn't walk. And,
uncompromising in the way that he unblinking in the way that he depicted it, and also, but the music in that scene. I wanted to say something about Barbara Boucher from earlier in the movie, but certainly that scene in particular made me think about, brought to mind Dillinger is Dead, which is one of my favorite Italian films. I think it came out in 68 or 69. It was directed by Marco Ferreri, who's the guy that did Le Grand Bouffe.
Okay.
And it's a very strange film, which is it Michel Piccoli? I think he's an art house guy that worked with Buñuel and so on. Yeah. He's just sort of going about his business, doing sort of routine tasks, and there's music playing throughout just like pop songs playing on full blast throughout the thing. It's sort of like it seems like he's listening to the radio, but it also seems like it's from outside the right. And that I won't spoiler Dillinger is Dead, though. I think everyone should see that. It's a beautiful, strange film.
Yeah.
But and it's got some solid nuggets on it too on the soundtrack. This band called The Rokes, which they're like a garage punk band that did.
And that's the thing. Let's go into the Duckling a little more and stay into that. What we were talking about conceptually and thematically, the way you were talking about Rome. Rome
Open City.
Open City.
Right, the priest.
The way that priest was characterized in that, which was basically the hero and holding the community together through religion and as a force of good. And then of course in Duckling, it's really just a force of nastiness.
And the
I mean, he came out of a place what he thought was love, but of course it was very misguided.
He I mean that, and I'd have to rewatch Rome Open City to really confirm how direct the scene relates. But the second I originally watched Don't Torture a Duckling years ago. I recently rewatched it, and it struck me that the scene of the priest playing soccer with the kids. Right. I believe there's a very similar scene in Rome Open City, in which you said
because there's no hint of impropriety or anything. It's just he's like, I think what Fulci is talking about is just like, okay, if you take the religion at face value and you read it just like gay bashers take Leviticus literally, right? If you take that, then you're going to do some really sick crap and terrible things to humans, if you
Yeah.
believe that shit, right?
Yeah, it was his own sort of
So save
own
the
take
soul,
on it.
kill
His
the person,
perverse,
save the soul.
Yeah, the priest's perverse interpretation.
Right, right.
of,
And the great scene at the end where he falls down, the mountain.
Yeah.
And is just
repeatedly
faced.
shown.
Yeah. And his face hits he's diving headfirst off a cliff, and his face is just ripped apart.
Yeah.
And it's weird because they have sparks.
Yeah.
Which is really weird but cool.
Yeah.
Like he's some kind of demon or something. It's like very strange, supernatural.
I wonder what
that was strange.
What that was all about.
Yeah, sparking his face.
I'd have to see it again.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I wonder if it was a sort of just practical, like they did it and something in there happened to spark.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was just so, it added extra weirdness. Like
actually an
if
android,
someone
that
demon was falling and his face was torn off, it would spark. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
it was
know.
weird.
Yeah.
It sure added a lot to me instead of just, maybe they just did it for effect. But
yeah,
just like other Giallos were talking about, the excessive, that fall takes like a minute, for him to fall, and then there's several shots going back to him hitting the next rock, and then cutting back to why he did it. He did what he did. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Duckling. Now at this point, I want to take a small break. I got to get another Guinness here, and then we'll be back with M. Stern.
That's me.
And Giallo.
What is X? What is X? What is X? What is X?
What is
What
X?
is X?
Can't
Always
get over
gonna
these
help
guys.
you. Yeah, no, it's an incredible app. It really will do anything that you want it to do.
Yeah.
It can remove leeches, cornbread.
Yep.
I've used it just last week to remove ticks. I was out in the field, and I was in my shorts, and the ticks got in my shorts, or on my legs anyway. And you know how you can get serious diseases, Lyme disease,
Oh, yes.
and they burrow in.
Yeah.
You just use What Is X,
And
and they'll come right off.
yeah.
So
And it won't even hurt.
won't hurt at all. The ticks, they hurt.
Oh,
They
yeah.
will be hurting, those little blood-sucking parasites.
Terrible. No reason for those arachnids to be around. I believe they are arachnids.
I don't know. Are they a crab?
8
Crustacean?
legs. No, they're not crustaceans. But that reminds me of
Yeah.
the new expansion feature of What Is X.
Sure.
They have started camps all over the country in select areas, highly populated areas. You can sign up for this special service. They'll drive you out to the What Is X camp. And
what?
yeah, they had me test this the other week. I'm surprised they didn't call you about this, but
Let me see that.
yeah, you get.
Damn it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe they like me more than you, but that's beside the point. They drive you out to this awesome camp, and you spend the whole week learning about every single feature What Is X has to offer. It's for people that are really into the app, and they also offer life advice. They tell you what you need to do, and it's only for a small fee of $299.99. And it's turned my life around. You can do a monthly subscription to go out there every single
Well, now
month.
that I'm reading
It's
this,
great.
I understand. This is good. This is really good. You want to get out into the wild, and if you get a tick while you're in
Yeah.
the wild, get rid of it.
And
with
the
What Is X?
The What Is X people help you learn the app out there.
New coupon.
Yeah. New coupons. I use these myself, actually. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if we're allowed to,
You
but
can.
I use them.
You can use them. It's no problem.
But I mean, like us as the
yeah.
the creators of the show.
Sure. I mean, we get a free, What Is X subscription, but we're users of the
Wait,
product.
you get it free? I have to pay.
Okay, so we each have something that we're a little ticked off about. We'll get together on that.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Look, What Is X is awesome, and the new coupon will give you 300 days of free, unfettered access to the new What Is X database of parasites. and it will tell you all about the parasites it can destroy. After that, you're on your own, but you'll have to learn. It's a great coupon.
It
Use
is. It's worth it. I'll
give you mine.
The code is A14RF353792.
-3. And
Space Apocalypse Cinema.
Right. What is it? Hello, and we're back
right.
from the break. I got some Guinness.
No ducklings were tortured.
No ducklings were tortured, but we were just rewatching that scene at the end of Duckling where the priest falls down and his face is sparking. Pretty cool. M thinks it's a practical effect to get his face to explode off. I thought it was just a cool thing. So whatever. I don't know. I thought it was it was a great effect, whatever it was. So then we were talking about censorship and how the extreme violence and sexuality in these Giallo films was kind of paved by Pier Pasolini.
Yeah, Pier Paolo Pasolini, I guess, fought the censorship battles as his movies became more sexual in their content. I don't think it was
Salo.
Well, leading up to that, his early movies were neorealist. He did one called Acetone, if that's how that's pronounced, and Mama Roma. They dealt with the sort of the day-to-day life of, I guess you could say, the underclass in Italy in a way that some of the other neorealist stuff didn't, because Pasolini, he sort of rolled that way. Like when Knights of Cabiria, when Fellini was looking for somebody to talk to consult as he made a movie about prostitution. He was, who do I talk to? Pasolini was, I don't think had been making movies yet. I think he was a poet, but he was just, the sketchiest person that Fellini could find.
Talk to Pasolini. He's
talk
a
to
freak.
him. He's the guy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So then, as the movies, continued on, he got more. There was these really cryptic sort of religious movies like Hawks and Sparrows and Gospel According to St. Matthew,
right?
And then,
which are all, fairly normal as far as their content. I mean, they're not like exploitation cinema that you would think of. And that's the interesting thing about Pasolini is, like, when you see something that extreme, you think of maybe the Serbian film or something like these really, or Saw or whatever. Just, gore fests or something.
When you get to Salo, though Salo was, he made it for, well, before that there was a couple of adaptations of, he did Oedipus Rex, he did then the Decameron and Canterbury Tales, but increasingly sort of sexual
the Decameron,
things,
yes.
dirtier at least in the more.
But it was done by a
gaudiness.
great filmmaker and poet. Not just some schlock filmmaker. So that's the difference, And that's probably what could differentiate, between the censorship. Is it art or is it pornography? Or Yeah. So I think, anyway, how he, got away with it is in the context of historical documentation. I mean, because this Salo is based on, historical...
Yeah, that was before that he did Teorema and Porcile, a couple of other sort of more political kind of films. Teorema actually just got a re-release on Criterion. Criterion edition just came out. That's one of my favorites. And so, but yeah, he started dealing with more explicitly sexual topics, and then of course Salo, an adaptation of 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade.
Crazy.
It's
you can't get
that's
more.
a wild one.
I mean, it's whatever you can think of, it happens. I mean,
but it's
girls,
done with
two girls in a cup barely touches it. I mean, Jesus.
It's done with a first of all, I think it was done with brownies or something like that. But it's done with a with a painter's eye.
Yes,
with an
that's
attention
the thing.
to composition.
And I think that's the only reason
Yeah.
he probably got away with it with the censors, is that it was very artistically done.
Yeah. And almost,
as opposed
sort of anti-erotic in a
yeah.
sense. It's
Right. There's nothing erotic about
Yeah.
this stuff. Yeah, you just puke at looking at this stuff. So I think he paved the way. He was murdered in 1975, as you were saying. Could have been a political assassination. But anyway, that I think, paved the way for some of Argento and Fulci to go ahead and just push the levels on this stuff, which they did. So we have Argento's first entry, which was the bird with the crystal plumage. And saw an interview with Argento, and the head of the studio was just like, no, I don't like it. After the filming, I was like, no. And in the big cities, like Milan and Rome, it did very poorly. But then they went out to the smaller cities, and it did really well. Like, there's people lined up around the block. And the only reason it really did well is it was Argento's dad pushed it. Argento himself, if you're the artist, it's harder to push your own idea. But Argento's dad, talked to the head of the studio and saying, look, give it another chance. Let's push it out in some of the smaller. And they did, and it paid off. It became a very, enabled. That would have been kind of Argento's first and last entry. But that just goes to show you what things can happen in the film industry.
And then it launches Giallo mania,
right?
And
Yes.
it's the most popular. I guess it was in some way the popular cinema, right? I mean, they made a ton of them, and everyone was going to see them. I think I saw that the Black Belly of the Black Belly of the Tarantula, I think that one was called, had Giancarlo Giannini in it, though I don't think he used his real name on the credits. But it was, I think a guy said it's something that I watched. The producer maybe said that it had sold 700,000 tickets, and then I realized that I don't know what that means, but it seems like that's a lot.
For Italy.
Yeah, for Italy in 1972.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it sounds like,
But they were cranking these things out. Now, I don't think Argento was maybe as prolific as Fulci. Fulci was, I think, really cranking them out. And then, of course, we have George Romero to thank for zombie spaghetti films, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah.
Spaghetti zombie films.
Caught on. And to some extent, well, Argento, because Argento did the
Italian version
cut
of Dawn of the Dead
with Goblin on the
brought
soundtrack.
Goblin on the soundtrack, which was brilliant. Which is great, and then that I love that combination. And then they just kind of ran with it from there, making Fulci's Zombie 2, he called it, instead of being Dawn of the Dead or 2 or whatever. There's something with the name, I forget. Maybe Dawn of the Dead was going to be Zombie, and so they just called it Zombie 2.
I think Dawn of the Dead was released in Italy as Zombie. And then the Fulci movie was Zombie 2.
Zombie 2, right.
And then there's
Zombie 3.
Other confusing sort of, because by the time you get to what was released in the U.S. at some point, maybe even as a Media Blasters DVD when this was, or a VHS or something, was After Death. Claudio Fragasso movie was Zombie 4.
Wow.
And then
I didn't know they got that far.
Yeah, but there's
the titles are interesting. What was that? Let me just bring up this. Because we were talking about Anthropophagus, which is 1980, Joe D'Amato. Grim Reaper.
AKA the Grim Reaper.
The Savage Island is another title for that. So
Yeah.
it was interesting because I look up Anthropophagus and then it shows up with a Grim Reaper. Oh, what? And then in the titles, it says The Savage Island.
Yeah.
So, whatever works, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
They don't make them like Anthropophagus anymore.
No, they don't.
You know?
No, that was deep.
Yeah.
D'Amato pulls no punches. Tisa Farrow is in that.
Luigi Montefiore, a.k.a. George Eastman, as the Anthropophagus Beast.
Oh.
He was in a bunch of those Joe D'Amato movies. In fact, there's some recent special feature that I watched where he said that people used to ask him why he worked with Joe D'Amato, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess because D'Amato was seen as being the tier under the bottom tier. And so, but Montefiore was actually in Fellini's Satyricon.
Okay.
As he plays the Minotaur.
Oh.
When you see there's some scene where, and that movie's, I watched it years ago and it's sort of non-linear, so I can never remember what it's about anyway.
Fellini can be a little
But
odd,
the guy takes his Minotaur mask off, and it's George Eastman. I think it was just supposed to be a guy, and that was the big reveal. But if you know who Luigi Montefiore, aka George Eastman, is, it adds another layer to the surprise. But he's 6'9".
Wow.
So they probably got him. I mean, it's probably why
That's a
Fellini
good
found the
monster.
sketchiest guy to get as a consultant on Knights of Cabiria, and he got the tallest guy to play a Minotaur. But back to the
but that's
D'Amato though. He
D'Amato.
there were some shots in that movie that I
shot on the Greek.
it was a Greek island, right?
Right.
Yeah. That I think are the opening scene. There's the German tourists get killed.
Oh right,
and,
it's the couple walking
on a
down,
beach,
walking on the beach, and then so,
and there's that scene where there's just blood. It's a perspective shot,
Mm-hmm.
but there's just blood dripping onto the sand.
Yeah.
That's one of those shots where I'm like, I don't think, I can't say for sure, but that's a more style than I think you would see in a slasher of that era. Outside maybe Wes Craven, because he had a sort of, Craven, Carpenter, those guys had art house sensibilities, but I think they were kind of making movies for different reasons or doing sort of.
They wanted to make money on they wanted to continue to make them. They were able to tap into the sensibilities of the time.
Yeah.
That's what these guys were trying to do also.
That, when at the end, when Tisa Farrow gets caught by the arm and sort of flung over the, I mean, there's...
After her friend gets yanked through the roof.
Yeah, that was... I rewatched that today, and that was a part that I forgot. There's,
And of course, the extra fleshy blood face,
that's
gets pulled through that tile.
Oh, that was
ceiling.
what I was going to say. Yeah, you watch these movies. I watch these movies and have been doing so for eons. And I think nothing's going to, like that. My sensibilities have been so adjusted that I'm essentially just watching these movies. Like my mind is just on mute because it's been so blown out by so much horror and revolting imagery. But like, man, something about that, the skin, it still does it.
I know.
It cuts through my cynicism about gore. That's true also of Fulci stuff as well. Like sometimes it can get you, and that was a gross effect.
It was like surprising. She just gets pulled through the roof, and you think, well, she can survive that. But
and then she's getting faces stripped off.
Right. Just the flesh, strips of flesh peeling off, and and then again they extend the scene, so it's not like in a lot of American films. It's like someone's yanked out of the scene, pulled across the floor, like real sudden jump scares. But this is like continuous. She's pulled through. Okay, then that's bad. But then her friend's trying to get her out of there with the ice pick or whatever.
That's right. She tries to knock the ceiling out.
The guy's pulling her head through, and it's just like continue, cut back, and so that's definite good technique for that stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course
the eating of his.
He spills his guts.
Yeah. and just
At the end.
just eats him. That's
Yeah.
What else would one do? You're a
Right.
cannibal. They're there.
They're there.
I
These look tasty.
exactly. I think what they used was some sort of delicacy. I think that some
Oh,
sort
is
of
that right?
sheep intestine, like
Oh,
a thing
okay.
that you could actually eat.
yeah.
And
And
so
the baby.
yeah, the baby was a skinned rabbit.
Yeah.
So
It's the only scene I know of actually eating a baby that I can think of.
I'm trying to think.
of another
There's got to be
which is pulled out, yanked out
Yeah.
of a pregnant lady. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the only one you could. Yeah, I was trying
That's
to
the
think
only one
if
I
there's
can
another
think
one.
of. Yeah.
It seems like I Claudius. In I
Oh.
Claudius, John
the
Hurt.
TV series?
Yeah, the TV series.
Oh, wow.
In the one that ran on the BBC that
Yeah.
wasn't cut, not the PBS version.
Oh.
Well, you don't actually see the eating of the baby.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so they take it to the next level. But
Whoa,
it's John Hurt.
Gielgud?
John Hurt
Oh,
is,
John
is
Hurt,
Caligula, right? Am I? And,
and then there's
he eats the that's the big setup, like because he believes himself to be
A
Zeus, or he's a god, and
Yeah,
then so at the end of the scene, some people, some guards or whatever, centurions, open
Yeah.
the door, and they're so express
Oh.
shock.
Oh,
And in the
okay.
cut version, that's where it stops. But in the uncut version, he has blood on his mouth.
okay.
It shows him he has blood on his mouth, so he went for
Okay.
it. So,
but
well, it's good that
actually,
we
the
figured
showing
that out.
of the
Yeah,
actually
that's
pulling the baby
Yeah.
out. It's like, whoa.
D'Amato extended.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he took it to the next level.
Right.
I think that so. Yeah, but you see, even for a director like D'Amato, who's generally regarded as the and was at the time as the sort of lowest level. I
Yeah.
mean, there's style. That's what I was
Yeah,
sort
not
of
bad. I
thinking
mean,
about, and
He's certainly below,
Yeah.
Fulci or
yeah.
Argento.
But Montefiore said in one of these interviews that he saw Joe D'Amato as being self-limiting in the way that he approached his career, in the sense that, which I think Fulci also did as well.
Oh, yeah.
They
I mean, instead of going for a higher
instead
tier.
of going for a higher tier,
Yeah,
they
okay.
stuck with what they were comfortable with because
Why not?
they were probably.
Like a Roger Corman. Crank
That's-
him out.
Yeah, or I mean, but I think Corman seems comfortable with what he does, right? His place in the industry doesn't ever seem. You don't ever get the feeling that Roger Corman wants to make aspired to make
No.
more than what he does. And he worked with Nicholas Roeg. I mean, plenty, and he
Oh,
did
sure.
some of those early
Well, and he
Corman
launched
movies.
the careers of so many,
Yeah.
people. Even Jack Nicholson and,
Right.
so many producers and directors came
Yeah.
from the Corman school
Yeah.
of tight budgets and tight
Yeah.
deadlines, which is what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
I think he was more of a training ground. But I just wonder if there is spawn of Fulci or Argento. There probably is. I don't think we know about that.
Oh, in terms of influence, like
Yeah.
contemporary. Well, those
Right, because they had to crank these things out, so that was kind of a machine. They didn't have a studio system as such that I'm aware of, like
not sure.
Hollywood, right? So there wasn't a Italian studio system. So what I wanted to get into was just the flight to America, especially the 70s films of Deodato and Cannibal Holocaust, starting in New York and then ending up, some South American country. And then, of course, Zombie, the Fulci film, starts in New York, ends up on some island, and then there's several others.
Yeah.
I can't name now, but there are several others that have the Twin Towers at the beginning. Actually, the Cannibal Holocaust is probably the most striking because it starts and ends with the Twin Towers. So it's just really, I think that was the Italian concept of America. It just said, this is America, these giant towers, Where I would think of the Statue of Liberty or the Empire State Building, but I don't know. I thought it was. I just think it's interesting, and that it's in so many of those films. That's what we get. We get. Also, I believe that a lot of the filming that was done in New York, and it's always great to see New York in the 70s and the 80s, was done guerrilla style, I believe.
That's possible. That's I mean, certainly that was definitely the case. I know with Larry Cohen shot a lot of the stuff guerrilla. I mean, I'm not sure about how the Italian filmmakers went about that, but you know,
I believe
they seem to have disregard for many laws and aesthetic limitations.
Yes,
so I can't imagine that. You know,
I think that's probably why they did it too.
licensure.
They said, "Oh yeah," and then maybe they found out, and one guy told another, and then we can get away with it. And then there was always some kind of boat involved, you know.
Yeah.
And the ferry.
Yeah.
Well, the ferry was which one?
Zombie 2, right?
Zombie
I mean,
2
or Fulci Zombie, yeah.
Yeah.
Fulci
They used the
Zombie,
ferry a
Zombie 2.
lot, and then the boats.
Yeah. There's a boat in Anthropophagus. Well, that's a Greek island, though.
Yeah.
As we mentioned. Yeah.
But it's New York, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Before you had mentioned that, I hadn't thought of that. I'm sitting there going, are all those movies set in New York? Oh, yes, he's right.
Yeah.
Rob is right. All those movies are. It's all Italian horror, but not very little of it is in Italy, but you know, some seems like a significant portion. I mean, you know, those movies that were made in the Philippines, the Bruno Mattei, those, you know, were all shot in the Philippines.
And I'm sure there's financial reasons. I think also the financial reason for coming over here, I believe maybe could have been the investors, and I believe the economy of Italy in the 70s was like declining, and the filmmakers couldn't get a lot of backing at home, and so they kind of fled to the States. This is my theory. Not totally based on just bullshit, but I believe there's some truth to that, which I found interesting. It's just, you know, part of the whole game, and then that shaped these films, because I believe some of those, I think it was the westernization too. Not only the American actors, you can always tell there's one actor, like in any spaghetti western, that's speaking English, and then the rest of the actors are speaking in Italian. They're dubbed. But then they always end up on some island, and then that's where they go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those movies, the ones shot in the U.S. had, you know, pan-European casts, and there's you know, no original language version. It's just dubbed. Lamberto Bava's Macabre. You ever see that one?
No.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Oh.
So many.
The one that he did. Yeah,
right.
Little time.
It's every time I feel like I've seen a lot of these. Yeah. You know, then like Severin or one of these distributors puts out another wave of these movies, and then I look those up on Wikipedia, and I haven't seen any of those or anything that's related to them. There's you know, so it's
I know. I think I've seen a lot, and then you rattle off like 20 that I haven't heard of. It's like, wow, you are deep into it, which is awesome. I wanted to talk also about Zombie, the Fulci movie, which is basically Zombie 2, I guess, right? Starts in New York and then ends up on this island where it's the mad doctor that creates something. It's got such great style to it. The one scene that I really dig is the corpses that are in like the canvas bags, and then they come alive, and then they just shoot them in the head. Right. And it's just this explosion out of the bag. It's just really visceral. It's one of those things that you're like, oh shit. Yeah. I've never seen that before. That's deep. Yeah. Because it's a corpse, and it's just in this bag. It just kind of reminded me of Audition, the guy in the bag.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, ugh, someone in a bag, but blasting his head.
It's speaking of people in bags.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. We go back to Mario Bava.
Oh, okay.
Planet of the Vampires.
Oh, yes.
Planet of the Vampires.
Right.
When I first saw that movie years ago, the way that I described it to someone was as if Irwin Allen had started worshiping Satan, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it has,
Yeah.
it's so tonally weird because it feels, and was very much, it was like, came out in like 65, I think, right? So it's of that sort of early Star Trek, like
Yeah.
Lost in Space era.
But dark, but like the
then-
bad Samantha on Bewitched, right?
Right. I mean, you see, like, you know, and then first of all, they're
All
again,
black
those,
leather,
Yeah.
very, I mean, almost Nazi, leather outfits.
Yeah, and then getting into, fist fights, and then there's blood, and then there was that scene that made me think of that is when they're in the graves on the alien planet,
Yes.
and then they just come up and they're in clear bags.
Yeah.
They're like these zombies, like, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
like,
yeah, those little
yeah.
notes make a lot of difference. It's interesting, the bags, yeah. But the production design on Planet of the Vampires is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unlike anything else of the time. Like the crappy, Destination Moon, or those, the American films where they had some goofy comedic sidekick guy and was a
Right.
dummy, and then there's really terrible panel of crappy Radio Shack knobs,
Yeah.
and they didn't even try with the helmets. I mean, this stuff looks fantastic today. Planet of the Vampire.
Yeah.
It's all really cool looking stuff.
I remember hearing some story where the actor, the lead astronaut, whatever he was, had been concerned that the movie wasn't going to look good, and Bava was like, "Just trust me,"
Yeah.
like, well, and then it ends up being this beautiful,
Oh.
haunting sort of, with all the lighting, really used that expressionistic lighting
Yes.
that he did to a nice effect where it's it's just green and purple sort of
Oh yeah.
weird kind of haunting
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's a great. So that's cool. That brings back that Bava. That's what 64. You say?
I think 65.
Interesting. So I wonder how that ties into. And then what year was Blood and Black Lace? Right around the same.
That was 64. Yeah.
Interesting. So those were filmed
I
within a
believe
couple
so.
of years of,
Yeah.
of each other.
Yeah.
Wow, and so different.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but
But they're
I think so.
probably within
It's-
a few
yeah, it's-
years of
yeah.
each other.
yeah, I mean, because
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bizarre that they're so different.
I also just recently discovered that there was an actual connection to Lost in Space, which was
Oh.
that apparently the screenwriter on Planet of the Vampires
Yeah.
is the unforgettably named Ib Melchior,
Oh.
who was also the screenwriter on Death Race 2000.
Oh, okay.
And
The only other Ib I can think of is
that's-
Ib Iwerks,
Ib
the original Walt Disney guy, the guy that drew Mickey
Oh.
Mouse.
oh,
The guy that Walt Disney stole all his artwork with.
yeah. I was only familiar
Ib
with
Iwerks.
the other
Yeah.
Ib, but
Yeah, Ib.
You know.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
yeah,
That's a good
but he
connection.
had apparently came up with the idea for Space Family Robinson. He was the,
okay. Because that was the concept, right?
Yeah.
It was Swiss Family Robinson
in space.
in space, right? Because Will Robinson, it's
Yeah.
the Robinsons, yeah.
And then Irwin Allen picked that up. And,
Yeah, and put the flamboyant Dr. Smith in it,
Dr.
who
Smith.
apparently was only going to be in like one episode, but he became like a pivotal character.
Yeah. It's been so long since I've seen Lost in Space,
Yeah,
Land of the Giants.
Oh, yeah, Land of the Giants, that was...
Time Tunnel I've seen more recently, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea starring Richard Basehart.
Oh, that is so funny. 'cause
Also
it's-
played in a Fellini
like-
film.
What's that?
Richard Basehart,
Basehart was in a Fellini?
La Strada, I think.
Okay.
Wasn't he?
Donald Sutherland was in a couple of Fellinis too, right?
Not sure. Could I mean
yeah.
most likely. I'm trying
Yeah,
to think
yeah.
of which ones, but that
Yeah, he definitely was.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. That's kind of the same era. Time Tunnel I really thought was cool.
Yeah.
That was really great. It's just because you got to go to different time.
Yeah, and
things,
they go
right.
way back and way forward.
Yeah,
like what we're doing with this podcast right
That's
now.
right. We're
only on
going
a-
way back.
Yeah.
Titanic. I think it was a cool episode.
We might find ourselves in 450 something AD with Odoacer the Ostrogoth, who became the first king of Italy.
Oh, really?
And then back
Okay.
to Mario Bava, because we are
And then,
traveling through time.
Well, you're in.
And who knows what's ahead?
And then you're an eggplant,
That's
right?
possible.
From what Romeo? Not Romeo Must Die, but the film with. Oh my gosh! I just saw it too. True Romance. Remember?
I don't think I've seen True Romance.
Oh, True Romance.
That's Quentin Tarantino wrote the screenplay.
He wrote
for that,
the
right?
screenplay. That's
And
right.
it has
yes.
Bronson Pinchot in it.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah. Very good. But there's a scene.
time traveling
Dennis
eggplant?
Hopper is the dad, and Christopher Walken is the mob guy that wants to get information from him. And then Hopper goes on this whole thing about the connection of the black people and Italian, how they, Ottoman Empire and whatever, they came in, and then he was just going on, you're an eggplant.
Oh, no.
And so he knew he was going to die, so he thought he'd just insult him as much as he possibly could.
Oh my!
Because the Italians are, kind of
So it was
historically
a racial,
racist.
sort
Yeah.
of element to that.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew he was going to die, so he figured, what the hell, might just go on a high note.
Oh. I can't speak too much to that one. I have not seen
But that was the
film.
line, you're an eggplant, and then he was pop.
What else was I?
But that brings us back to Italy, which
Yeah.
brings us back to, we were talking about Zombie. There is one great trivia about Zombie, and there's the greatest scene, the most unique scene that you'll never see in another movie, which is the underwater zombie shark fight.
Oh yeah,
It's
zombie versus shark. That's a
incredible.
Yeah, I think that the effects guy just took it upon himself to do that.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes, there was an underwater photographer guy, and he thought it would be a cool idea to get this, shark, and then this guy dressed as a zombie, and he took it upon himself. Fulci said, "No, we don't have time for that," and the guy just did second unit footage, and it's incredible. It's really, it totally, you're like, all right, so there's the cute girl that has no top on, and she's in that little skimpy bathing suit. All right, that's pretty good, but but then the zombie is
the zombie
eating the shark,
Yeah.
and then
Gets his arm ripped off, I think.
Yeah, right.
You don't see that every day.
No, you don't, and you'll never see it again.
Yeah, it's sui generis. I mean, those little things that happen on a film set. That,
Well, right. And
sometimes
that's something that you would never see like on a Hollywood set, where just things are very controlled and very, like, you couldn't just go off and, shoot something and get it actually in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what does that bring us to? Well, I would like to, we've talked Fulci and Bava and Pasolini and censorship. I'd like to get into Argento a bit. We talked a little about Bird with Crystal Plumage, how he got his start with the help of his dad. I got to say that my real entree into Giallo was Suspiria. And for that, the soundtrack by Goblin. I've seen Suspiria projected live and Goblin live playing the soundtrack, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It's a real visceral soundtrack. It's just so great. There's just these crazy intonation. It's just boom, boom. We're seeing it in a midnight movie, and it's distorted. It's like crazy, and it just supports that witch thing so well, which the whole thing is. And then we were talking about the death scene in that, and looking out the window, and it's like, what is that outside of the window? Which is like everyone's kid's fear. Looking out the dark window at night. Is there something out there? I don't really want to see it, but what is it? And then looking, and then
there it is.
Bam.
Boom. Yeah, that's one that I recently saw in a Masters of Horror episode.
Oh.
There was from obviously this is, I rewatch those every once in a while and go through a couple of them, but that scene got referenced in, I think, William Malone. He's the guy that directed Fear.com.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a scene at the end of this, his episode, Fair-Haired Child, which is a pretty good one. And a woman gets her head. It's the woman who played Tank Girl.
Oh, yeah.
And she gets her head shoved up against the window, and then the head explodes. And I was
wow.
like, there it is. It's one of those homages, And Argento's films were full of homages to,
True. Definitely. Well, that was the whole Giallo thing, was very derivative on, of other film genres. That's what the Italians do so well, as well as the Stones and Zeppelin repurposed blues,
Yeah.
and made it into something
its own
different and amazing.
Thing, yeah.
As much as people, diss them for that, it's like, well, they just copied. No, they totally made they regenerated that stuff and made it vital again and brought a new sound to it, just like the Italian directors did amazing stuff with the Western, like Once Upon a Time in the West, But Argento, stylistically, just that whole film is just amazing. The rain, the intense rain, and of course that building is just incredible. And the red and the colors are so great. Mm-hmm. Just phenomenal.
That room full of barbed wire, like, where do you get one of those?
Yeah,
where
so crazy.
Do you even get that razor wire or whatever
right,
it is? It's been years since I've seen that. Right?
Yeah.
Remember, like Udo Kier is playing the
right.
piano in that one. He's like a blind piano player, I think, isn't he?
I don't think Udo Kier is
the
piano player, but that's the guy with the dog, and then he gets turned on him. The poor blind guy, piano
It's been
player.
a long time since I've seen that one. So recently I watched Opera. You ever see that one?
Yeah, it's been a while though. Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting movie. I mean, I think it's Argento trying to do his sort of Peeping Tom, sort of like his movie about watching movies, his movie about making movies sort of, because that's the woman, someone keeps showing up and just like sticking the it's sort of like a Clockwork Orange type thing where it's like, but it's like these he puts roofing nails sort of and then he kills someone. He kills someone in front of her.
Sounds so familiar now.
The physics of it don't really work, because I don't think you could tape someone's like tape nails like that.
Yeah, right. I know. I remember the scene now.
I don't think they just fall off, but it's handled in kind of an interesting way, just because like she's forced to watch this brutal murder, and then she like walks out of the building and just sort of starts going about her business, and then like it happens again. It's sort of like if that continually happened, people around you are getting murdered and you're being forced to watch, and then the guy just lets you go and you keep going. I mean, you'd do something, you'd contact the authorities. You'd be like, this is,
Well, right. That's
get like a surveillance sort of thing.
I want to do a show about screenwriting and how we can improve those things. But
yeah, right.
But
it's interesting with those movies in particular. I've thought of that because there's interesting stuff throughout that movie, the like the Peeping Tom style stuff and like sort of psychosexual stuff that he's sort of getting at, but the sort of weird tangled screenplay throws some of that off, but it's sort of like if it all was done more expertly on the screenwriting side, I don't think it'd be an Argento movie, right? Like those movies.
That's true. There is that jarring part of it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't make sense, it's still cool to watch,
right.
which I think is the whole point.
Yeah.
It's style over substance.
Exactly.
And I think that's pretty much it. Although I got to say, Suspiria for me is pretty much the perfect horror movie soundtrack and style, and it does follow a path that's, you can definitely follow it. A dancer goes to the academy, and then it's weird, and then there's noises, and then there's the grubs falling in their hair, and then
Inferno is you see that one, the next that one
is that Deodato or D'Amato?
That's Inferno's Argento.
That's
the
Argento?
one about the house.
I'm
like,
thinking about Green Inferno, but that's
no, Green Inferno was
okay.
Eli Roth's take on the cannibal Holocaust sort of.
Inferno.
Yeah, I can't figure out what's going on in that movie. I've seen it about 3 times.
Oh, okay.
But that's the next sort of in the. Was it the Three Sisters trilogy? I think the conceptual trilogy about the witches that begins with Suspiria.
Yeah, which is so brilliant.
Yeah.
And then of course there's Profondo Rosso.
Oh yeah.
And Tenebrae, and John Saxon is in one of those.
He's in Tenebrae. That's
Tenebrae. Yeah.
That one I liked a lot. I watched it years ago. I haven't rewatched it, but it's there's some. I think there's a sheet in front of someone's face, and then it gets sliced open, and then there's a blood splatter on the sheet, which is interesting. And that's the one with the shoes, I think. There's like a red. Some guy had some. Maybe it's the inspector himself who's had a shoe. I don't know. It's something.
What's the one in the yard, and then there's a big plate out of the glass window?
That's Bird with the Crystal Plumage, right? Where it's done in the.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the house, and then it's someone's got murder in the backyard. I don't know if that was.
I don't know.
Profondo Russo or not. Yeah, they all kind of miss up for me.
Yeah.
But
there is a courtyard in Profondo Rosso.
Okay.
That's the and there's like.
But they all have
psychic and a Jewish funeral and jazz musician. Yeah.
And there's always the lame detectives that can't figure out shit.
Just
it's, I guess,
poking around.
What does the detective, I mean, is it a statement on the Carabinieri, the police force, or is it just the screenwriters putting you in the place of the police that can't figure stuff out, or I don't know.
That's
what's
a good
the point
question.
of it? But
it seems.
But because as a watcher of the movie, you can't figure it out either, really, until the end, typically. But they're usually very stupid, like.
Yeah, seems to be consistent. I'm trying to think. It seems like in the Black Belly of the Tarantula, that one's the most fresh in my head. I think Giancarlo Giannini is the police inspector, and I believe he solves the crime, but I don't know. I couldn't quite figure that.
Yeah,
it seemed to make sense when I went back, and I'm sort of like, if I watch this again, would I sort of get more like who was blackmailing who and what was the thing? But it was interesting to note that he was phoning it in his acting. Because right after that, I watched a movie that he did with Lena Wertmuller, who's one of my favorite directors. I think she's very underrated. And I watched The Seduction of Mimi. He does some good stuff in the Black Belly of the Tarantula, or the Belly of the Black Tarantula, or whichever it is. But there was like 1 or 2 scenes where he's crying, and it's a very evocative sort of thing. But most of it, like, he's just kind of walking around, like, thinking about calculating how much longer he has to do this and how much he's going to get paid. And then because when he's in these Lena Wertmuller movies, I mean, he's it's almost like. He's able to do a lot of different things. Sometimes it's like silent filmy almost.
Make a lot of difference.
Visconti, when he worked with Visconti as well. But
what was I going to say about the detectives? Well, right. So there is the Agatha Christie or the Hercule Poirot, where the detective is really the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
But that's a different angle.
Hercule Poirot.
Poirot.
I watched a couple of the
Orient Express, the new one.
Well, I watched a couple of the adaptations
okay.
by with Peter Ustinov.
Oh yeah.
As Hercule Poirot, and it was
the greatest detective in the world.
it's funny. I like it. Like Peter Ustinov doing a Belgian accent. There's something to it, you know.
Sure.
But also with those movies, I can never remember. Those sort of felt more like. I don't know, did they run on PBS originally in the States? Okay, it felt like something that would run on PBS. It's pretty comfortable mysteries.
Yeah. Nothing too fancy. But the whole point of that is that the reader is kind of put in a position of being the Hercule Poirot.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. You're smart. You're smart. So I think that's why people enjoyed them. It's like you're kind of the smart person.
Yeah. With the Giallos, it's more,
you're an idiot.
You're nobody. No, is it me or is it the screenwriter?
Well,
or is it
and
the
then the
director
detectives are never the main characters. It's typically, the murderer is certainly one of the main characters, and then, a woman. There's always a woman that gets killed, or they're typically the victims. But then he'll twist it around, like some of them will twist it around so that the woman is the murderer.
Yeah, there's always cool. It's like how many, what creative way can they find to twist it or flip it to
because
make,
it's always, they use the anonymous killer with the black glove and the big knife with the glinting big kitchen knife.
Yeah. Well, there are variations on the theme, like Anita Ekberg in Killer Nun had pink gloves.
Okay,
so if you can call that a Giallo, I think that's...
no, definitely. It's in that. It's in that arena.
Yeah. The director of that, I remember, said something about how he had meant for that to be a film about addiction and the relationship between morphine addiction and religion and so on and so forth. And it doesn't quite get there, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's a movie about Anita Ekberg, portraying a murderous nun, and so it is what it is.
That's fine.
That's
nunsploitation.
Okay, nunsploitation. I remember when I was in New York, I went to Mondo Kim's video a couple of times before it closed, and I just remember in their nunsploitation section.
Nice.
Yeah, it had Sister Act, which I thought was that's the place to file that one.
Yeah. And so we've talked so much about the origins of Giallo, and we've talked about Bava, and Fulci and Argento and Pasolini paving the way for censorship, and about New York, zombies, and we've gone over a lot of ground, dude.
Yeah. And there's still, I feel like we could still
oh my
talk
gosh,
for...
yeah. I think that's why I was trying to concentrate more on the stuff that I just enjoy, which is just the, the horror stuff, the very graphic stuff. That's my taste, But what I wanted to do is kind of hand it over to you so you can kind of talk about what you're up to as far as writing and getting published, and what we can expect from you soon.
Okay. Well, as we mentioned earlier, I am M. Stern.
Yes.
Local speculative fiction and weird fiction author. Yeah, I have a story slated to come out in the relaunched version of Startling Stories, which was a 1950s pulp magazine. It's coming out from Wildside Press. I've been waiting on that one for a bit, as things tend to happen in indie publishing. It went on hiatus for a minute, but it looks like things are getting back moving with that. So I'm hoping that heard somewhere maybe a spring of 2020 release date on that one. So
It's almost spring
hoping
of
to see that
2020.
soon. We're getting there. Yeah, spring has nearly sprung. And
Well,
so
we'll share a link if when that happens.
For sure.
Definitely.
yeah, I've got another story coming out in Weird Book, which is sort of the sister publication. It's supposed to be in issue 44, and issue 42 was just released. So,
Right.
yeah, so,
Very good.
yep.
Glad to support our
Yeah.
local artists.
And other than that,
writers.
I've just been writing.
Yeah.
You know, I've got all sorts of stories I've been
okay.
working on. Some funny, some serious,
Oh, all right.
some seriously funny.
Short stories.
Short stuff. I try to.
We should get together and do a little film adaptation of something that's stagey and requires, maybe one or two locations. That would be kind of fun.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. Maybe one of these days.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. We do our own Giallo type of adaptations.
I am.
So, again, M. Stern, and I'm Rob Herman, and this is Apocalypse Cinema. And check us out on Facebook, Apocalypse Cinema. And we are available. Obviously, you can, if you are listening to this now, you probably know where to find us, but we're on iTunes, etc. And we've got a Facebook page. And actually, these end up on a YouTube page as audio only. So have a great week, and we're going to talk about the different kinds of blood next time here. Have a good day and a good night.
All right. Yeah, it's fun, right? I mean, I feel like we.